Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the wonderful people who are making Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. Got a couple of quotes to share with you real quick, and we'll have a quick chat with our producer, Cal Curley, and then we're going to move over to Jamie Miller, the CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. So we're going to have a great show today. I was going through the digital history book this morning and found where former First Lady and social activist Betty Ford, you remember her well, President Ford's wife, had died back in 2011. And her story is inspiring. Most people know her story well, her story of recovery. And she said along the way, she said, change by its very nature is threatening, but it is also often productive. You know, we talk a lot about change on this show, and it is threatening. People don't like change. In fact, most people react to change identically initially. Which is, I'm not sure about this. Some people violently react to change. They don't want it at all. And so after that point, though, people go through various stages. Some people accept change more rapidly. Some have a very difficult time accepting change. But one of the best ways to improve in life and business is to always recognize that you're in a constant state of change. And when you look at it that way, I think it's a better way to look at it. But change is good. We learn from our mistakes. Another one that I came across, actor Tom Hanks was born back in 1956, and he said this: "We are still in the position of walking up and having a choice. Do I make the world better today somehow, or do I not bother? Do I make the world better today somehow, or do I not bother?" One of the beauties of this show is that we meet a lot of people who do the latter. That for sure. They say we're going to make the world a better place today. And while they have a lot of work to do in their businesses and they have a lot of work to do in their lives, they think and feel it deep in their soul that giving back to the community is one of the most important things that they can do. And I'm honored to so often have this conversation with so many leaders from across the state, really, who are really committed to giving back, and they're definitely going to bother. That is for sure. But I enjoyed that quote from Tom Hanks. Hey, real quick, Kyle, I just wanted to say we're not going to pop up a window on Kyle, but you'll hear his voice. Thank you so much for what you've done to drive this show. We've done a lot of. Well, there you go. You've built a window just that quickly. That's Kyle. He's an improviser. He does really well. But thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, you bet. Not a problem. It was easier to do this to make sure the audio worked because some things gremlins still happen.
Yeah. Well, hey, congratulations on your son. It's been fun watching him play baseball, and I know you stay busy with that. You got a big tournament you're going to, I think, in Alabama. Is that right?
Yeah, we just wrapped one, and we played at Coastal Alabama in Mobile this past weekend, and then leaving Sunday night to play a 4 or 5 day tournament in Hoover. So it's the I think Hoover's the perfect game headquarters, and it's going to be the final travel team tournament of the summer, and then he'll get some rest before he starts football.
That's very cool, man. Cal is a guy we've done. I don't know now. We've done so many conversations, way over 1,000 conversations now, and you can set your watch to Kyle. He's always there. He's always ready to help, and the show, in my view, it never gets old. It just we keep learning new things, and even a guest that we talked to 6 months ago, we talked to him again 6 months later, and these people are working in the trenches. Always something new to talk about, something new to report, and it's exciting. I mean, we had a great conversation with Billy Hughes last week, and Fofo Gillich, and the mayor of Waveland, and the mayor of Pass Christian, and Billy Knight, who's incredibly inspiring. We'll talk a little bit more about Billy Knight here shortly with Jamie Miller, but it's been really, really, really positive, hasn't it, Kyle?
It really has, and I keep coming back to Mayor Billy Knight. For so long, Moss Point was just kind of written off, and the news you heard out of Moss Point was always negative. And from day one of him starting his mayorship, nothing but positive views, positive out. I mean, it's just been to watch that transformation from what Moss Point from an outsider looked like and what it, the mindset, it's totally different now with Mayor Billy.
It is. I mean, you and I know our good friend Matt McDonald, who's head of the Coast Coliseum, and when we were at the Mississippi Municipal League, and he said of Billy Knight, why couldn't he have been mayor when he was on the board of Alderman in Ocean Springs? Because it's just his approach to things, so practical. And you heard Fofo Gillage, who, as you helped me kind of tune in, his assistant fire chief went over to Moss Point to be the fire chief. And Fofo actually went there. He went to Moss Point to speak to the Board of Aldermen, to talk about how thrilled he was that his number 2 was headed over there to do what he was doing. He talked about Billy Knight and the role he had early in Fofo's software business and the impact that it had. Then you hear Billy Hughes talking about Billy Knight, and Kenny Holloway talking about Billy Knight, and the mayor of Pascagoula. And you hear Billy Knight talking about them. I mean, this is the beauty of One Coast and what we're trying to accomplish. But there's a day when you wouldn't have had that kind of outpouring toward each other. And it's just a beautiful thing to see, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And, just growing up here all my life, you didn't see this 30 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Every mayor, it seemed like, was on a different mindset, the different playing field. They all talked about each other. Well, this guy's doing this person's doing that. And you don't see that anymore, which is, I think, transform the coast to where it's at now. Billy
said something that let's see, I'm trying to remember who was it. Anyway, co-opetition, this notion that they're going to cooperate, but also be competitive. I think that's the beauty of the region. I mean, each city is going to certainly protect its turf and do the things they need to do. But when it comes to the common issues of the region, we'll join together and we'll help each other. Yep. And we're seeing that. And it's great to see it. It's great to have this show to amplify that point. And I'm excited about it. But anyway, thank you so much for your support, my friend.
Hey, you bet. No problem.
Yeah. Speaking of the region, when we formed the Gulf Coast Business Council after Hurricane Katrina, this is what we wanted them to do. We wanted them to be this organization that brought people together, that created forums for people to be able to communicate with each other regionally. And that's what it's all about. And I'm thrilled that my friend, the CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, Jamie Miller, is going to be joining me now. Jamie, how are you doing, buddy? Oh, wait a minute. We lost your mic.
Yeah, apologize. I flicked the mute button, but no, I'm doing really well, Ricky. Thank you for asking, and staying busy in this heat, and but enjoying what I'm doing, and thank you for having me on the show.
Don't you love the way a lot of these conversations come full circle? Thinking about the role that the Business Council plays in bringing people together and recognizing leaders and all the things you guys are involved in. But as it relates specifically to Billy Knight and the conversation that we were just having, the rising tide award, the Gulf Coast Business Council was just given to Billy Knight. But isn't it great to see how there's such a mutual respect that's evolving in coastal Mississippi amongst the mayors?
I agree with Kyle and your commentary. I grew up on the coast. I had my own perceptions of Gulfport and the friendly rivalries of Gulfport, Biloxi. And then certainly watching and working with the mayors across the coast of 3 counties, I would say it's as good as I've ever experienced it in terms of just their willingness to not only know what other mayors are doing, but also, how can they help? And that also translates into the business community. Our executive committee, made up of industries from Jackson County to Hancock County, every time we get on a call together, Chevron's worried about what's happening in Hancock County, and the folks at Stennis are worried about what's happening in Harrison County. And so it's really a good time to be doing what I'm doing in terms of just the cooperation and the willingness for people to pick up the phone or answer the phone and see how we can make this place better.
Hey, listen, I had a really good conversation with John Harrison in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And it was, as always, when John and I spent a whole show together, conversation evolves into interesting places. And one of the things he said is, you look back in the history of coastal Mississippi, and to some extent, I'm trying to. Oh yeah, you're right. With I had some discussion with Bill Lavers from Harrison County Development Commission about this as well. But you think about Stennis Space Center and how it was such a transformative idea. You know, our forefathers to have the wisdom and the vision to set aside that amount of land to create a buffer zone in the way that they did, and then what it's become today with the blue chip industries that are there, and not just NASA, but also the commercial aspect to space flight. But it goes way beyond that these days. And you think about gaming and how it kind of revolutionized hospitality in coastal Mississippi. You can even put the industrial seaway, which is what Bill Lavers and I were talking about. For someone to have the vision to connect Gulfport Lake to the coast, just an amazing thing. We'll talk more about that when we get on the other side. But we're having a conversation with Jamie Miller from the Gulf Coast Business Council. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I have my friend Jamie Miller, who is the CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, with us today. And when we went to break, I was just sort of relaying this thought that John Hairston conveyed about Stennis and gaming. I added the industrial seaway to the discussion. John was saying that when you looked across the region, you look at places like the Florida Panhandle, for example, the economy of Florida Panhandle is really kind of beginning to explode. And he was wondering, we're not seeing as much growth as we would like to see. Now, look, Stennis is hanging in there well. Gaming industry is doing fine. You know, you got Chevron and Ingalls doing fine. You know, I mean, he's not saying that things are depressed in any way, but he's thinking strategically, what is that next big opportunity going to be that's going to cause big growth here in coastal Mississippi? I know you guys have a strategic plan. You've talked about stuff like this before. When you look at it, what do you see in the next 10 years?
Ricky, what I see, and one thing that our Master's Leadership Program is leaning into this session is the culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. I think the next wave of this diversifying our economy is going to be matching those technology companies, the blue technology companies, with the presence of NOAA and Ingalls and all the maritime things we're doing. We have the same opportunity in the space and aerospace sectors to match these startup companies that are wanting to partner with these larger, mature industries that are doing commercial space flight, and then also energy. I think, you know, what Chevron's able to do with energy and sustainability, I think those three sectors in particular offer an opportunity for us to start to attract talent and small companies, startup companies, that will begin to innovate those sectors in a way that's happening in other parts of the country. Now, it takes a few different ingredients to get there. But one thing our Master's Leadership Program is focused on this year is how do we create a culture of entrepreneurship, and not just tech, but entrepreneurs that are doing things like our friend Joe Cloy, where he's taken this unique approach to these boutique hotels and things that are not new in the sense, but they're new here. And he takes properties and makes incredible places for people to come and stay, all the way to gadgets that may fit in some commercial spaceflight capacity, to payloads that sit on these submersible marine vessels that Ocean Aero's. So to me, I think we've got to give ourselves a chance to start attracting these small startup companies. Also make it easier for the people here that are innovators in our own backyard. It takes venture capital, it takes people, it takes customers. But that's somewhere I think we're going to focus in the next few years.
Well, there's been efforts here to do pitch competitions for entrepreneurs. I had the opportunity in New Orleans to work very closely with the Idea Village and their Entrepreneur Week, where they brought all these people from all over the country, And the big goal was to take the big ideas, the entrepreneurs that are moving along that needed capital, and be able to marry that up with the capital, or those folks who have the capital. And really, really good things can happen. That's how you get another Ocean Aero. That's how. Because I spent time with Mark Henderson. I think it's so ironic that Mark and his wife start Magnolia Brewery. Mark over here has this other company called Log Linear Group with these sophisticated radar technology patents that he developed. One of the customers that he worked with was Ocean Aero when they were in California. And now since they sold Magnolia Brewery, he's now head of technology and R&D for Ocean Aero. And here's this local product that's doing that. But I was I mentioned this with Billy Hughes the other day. I was at the Gulfport Yacht Club. My granddaughter had a birthday party there, and I was just looking out from this great facility, which is the Gulfport Yacht Club, toward Ocean Aero, this great building that they developed, and recalling the conversation that I had with Mark Henderson, that they had these submarines, these manless submarines all over the world, some deployed in the commercial sector, some in the military sector, doing work we don't even know about. It's quite interesting stuff, all from right there in Gulfport. And so what's the next one going to be? How do you create a template for success where we're not only attracting people who want to come to a community that has a rich, accepted, supportive network, as they say, an ecosystem that supports entrepreneurship, and then also gets the attention of major investors that want to come in and help startups thrive. How do we get to that point where we have our own idea village, where we're having an entrepreneur week like they have, and we're bringing all these amazing people together? Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't that be a great opportunity for us?
I think our goal, or at least my goal, and it's early in this process, but we're doing the background and the homework now to get to those exact types of things you're talking about. As it relates to Ocean Aero, I recently had lunch with their CEO, Kevin Decker, and he spoke incredibly highly about Mark and just the talent that he's brought to their company. But I asked Kevin, I said, what attracted you to the Gulf Coast? I mean, I was at MDA when we started to recruit that company. And he said, any entrepreneur, any new company needs customers and they need capital. And what the Coast had in terms of customers for them, where we had a large science presence through NOAA and some help from Roger Wicker. We had an energy, offshore energy, and then the venture capital was the thing that we're probably the weakest in right now is how do we fund these companies to get started? But I think they're here. I think we have those pillars of space, aerospace, energy, blue tech. I think we've just got to start inviting those companies like Ocean Aero to come see what we have and then build that ecosystem around them. We do a pitch competition with Innovate Mississippi, or there is one here. We need to grow that. We need to do some other specific things in these technology sectors that we're strong suited for. I mean, I'm sure John Hairston, maybe someone else. I watch your show, and so a lot of the time I'm watching some of my executive committee members or other partners on your show, and I often will call them after they have their interview and just to follow up on thoughts. But I think we've got all the ingredients. It's one of those things where we just need to go tell our story. We need to make sure that others around the country know what we can offer. We've got the downtowns, we've got the climate, we've got all the things that people want to be here to live. I mean, just to live, but we got to have talent, customers, and capital. So,
yeah, it's been, and you know this well from your time at MDA, but I've had the opportunity to get to know very well Joe Max Higgins from the Golden Triangle area. And what's interesting about Joe when he's on the show is that he's extremely competitive. I mean, he knows how to do economic development. He knows how to go attract $1 billion plus projects. You had the opportunity to work with Joe Max, didn't you?
Sure.
And what Joe says of us is that we're the 800-pound gorilla that doesn't know that we're the 800-pound gorilla. So what he said what he would do is take not just the 3 coast counties, but the 6 coast counties. And he's not saying that you got to do away with the Jackson County Economic Development Foundation or the Harrison County or the Hancock County Port and Harbor Commission or whatever. But he's saying that there needs to be an entity that draws these folks together, and so that they can go pursue together, some big possibilities. And John was saying the same thing. We've got to figure out how to leverage the power of this region in a way that's not competitive, but that is very cooperative. And Joe Max Higgins, who has had, who's going to argue with his success? Been featured in 60 Minutes. He goes every year to do case studies at Harvard. I mean, he's willing to share his experiences. It's an important point, though.
Yeah, that's another initiative, and I haven't had a chance to really sit down with our executive committee. We do a strategic planning each fall, but I think that's exactly right. And there are clear examples, even in Mississippi, where there are several counties that have come together to work under a single marketing and kind of strategic plan. Each of those counties have their own economic developers that are going to, at the point of, if there is a project, the entity that's marketing and promoting and working on strategic initiatives in the region is not the same entity that is actually discussing the incentives or all the other things required to actually recruit and land a company. I think the same could be true here in South Mississippi, and I totally agree. I think if we were to do something like that, it would be a 6-county effort, because so much of our workforce is coming out of those Pearl River, Stone, and George County. But it's not to replace or do away with HCDC or Hancock Port and Harbor or Jackson County Economic Development Foundation. But we need to go have a message to the other parts of the region and the world, really, that
I agree.
Particularly these lower 6 counties can offer all the things a company would want to take advantage of.
When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with the CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, Jamie Miller, and we'll see where it takes us. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. Joe Max Higgins. I got to get him back on the show for people who are just now tuning into the show. If you've not heard he and I have conversations before, you got to hear him. In fact, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to go find the first conversation I had with Joe Max and post it at both the SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page and also the Ricky Matthews Show Facebook page. And I would really encourage you to go watch it to see why that's such a notable conversation. I think it's important that John Harrison has sort of offered up continuing this discussion about us being the 800-pound gorilla and may not necessarily realize it. It'd be interesting to watch the Gulf Coast Business Council's role in all of that. And with Bill Cork now head of MDA, having been at the Hancock County Port and Harbor Commission, he really understands how the coast, bits and pieces fit together. And he'd be a really good partner. And then, of course, Jamie Miller, who used to work at the MDA and has tremendous experience down here as well. Sometimes it takes leaders being in the right place at the right time with the right conversation, with the right opportunity. And that's when change begins to happen. Maybe we're headed toward that.
Listen, I've been in this role not quite 2 years, and I feel like we made, I don't want to say progress, but I feel like I'm confident in saying that our 3 local economic developers are certainly willing to share information, to work together. Ultimately, they're trying to recruit and land companies or expand companies in their county, given the advantages they may have. Among our chambers of commerce, but I think we all recognize we can do a little more in terms of recruiting and marketing around our country, around the globe. We have a very unique, specific set of things to offer here with deep water ports, with airports, with the Stennis Space Center. There's just too many things that would attract companies for us not to lean into it and work together as a region.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So that's a conversation that will definitely continue. Hey, listen, since you and I last talked, You had, I don't know, 600-700 people come together for the State of the Coast Symposium. That's turned out to be a really important moment where you look at the data and try to have a common understanding about where we are as a region. That really went well, didn't it?
It did. Post-pandemic, we got the opportunity last year for the first time to have people come together at the Beau Rivage, which is a beautiful venue. And then this year again, had another 600 people join us we hosted a professional speaker to talk about workplace and marketplace trends. Workforce and talent attraction is such a huge part of economic development. And then I provided some updates on some economic metrics, as you said. What are our city sales tax looking like comparable to previous and post-pandemic years? Gaming, tourism, all were very positive. Our bounce back from the pandemic era in terms of gaming and tourism has been tremendous, and probably because we had a lot of federal, financial incentives that went out post-pandemic. That money has been spent in the state, and so sales tax revenues in the cities is really healthy. But it's a great chance for our members to hear what things we're doing as an organization, to get an update on some economic metrics, and then also dive into a specific topic that may be a challenge for our industries and businesses.
So what was the overall message, and who was the featured speaker this year?
The featured speaker was a guy actually from Mobile County, a guy named Cam Martson, who has spent, several decades studying marketplace and workforce issues, hosts a podcast, and speaks all over the country, but really brought back, the challenges, not just the number of people, but the different strata of now, boomers working with Gen Zers, working with Gen Xers, and the expectations of a younger workforce and what they believe they're bringing to the table, what their expectations of a company are, and how do you attract and retain those folks? What are we getting right? What are we doing wrong? We had several of our member companies come up after and just say, there were some things in that presentation that we've been missing. We've been overlooking some things, and it was all supported back, with data and evidence of what what really attracts and retains talent. And so it was informative. And then we ended, after I gave my presentation of some economic metrics, we ended, we always highlight two individuals, and we present the Rising Tide Award. And of course, you mentioned Mayor Billy Knight, and we can't say enough about Mayor Knight, but I'll tell you a quick story. When we had decided who the winner was going to be in the public sector, we do a public sector and a private sector CEO award. I called Mayor Knight and was inviting him to make, we're having the event again. Thank you for coming last year, and we love to have you this year. And you are the winner of this year's Rising Tide Award. And the phone just went silent. And, there was a long pause there. And his first words to me were, "Jamie, I'm just doing my job." He's got just such incredible humility in what he does. And when you see him at work, he's dressed in a suit and a tie. But as soon as he gets out of City Hall, he's helping somebody's business, or he's, in tennis shoes, picking up debris from the tornado. He's just been an incredible leader for that area. We couldn't have found a better person to give the award to this year.
And who was the private sector?
Relativity Space, who is a 3D printing commercial spaceflight company located at Stennis. They are building each year their footprint gets a little bigger. But they're another California-based company that the state is really leaning in to kind of recruit their manufacturing and all of their work to be done here in coastal Mississippi. But they're testing their rocket engines now. They've got, I think, a staff of 90 or 100 more, and they're continuing to build out a footprint that has been impressive. The investments in capital investment, and also in terms of just bringing people to the region, has been significant. So last year was Ocean Aero, a kind of a blue technology company. This year we got a space company, and so we've had some real good winners.
That's cool. Look, I can't talk enough about education and how important education is to what we do here in coastal Mississippi, whether it be K through 12 or the role of Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College or the various other universities across the state and the role that they play in coastal Mississippi. Had a really, really interesting lunch with some leaders from William Carey recently, and they're a huge commitment to coastal Mississippi, man. They are just they can turn on a dime. They don't have an IHL they have to check with. They just kind of do what they do. It's been very interesting watching that. But education is so important. Workforce development is so important. I was really thrilled to see the Gulf Coast Business Council partner with the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber and this initiative you had involving superintendents. You actually just had that just in the last week or two, right?
Yeah, we decided earlier this year. I mean, as you know, you can't talk about economic development without workforce development. You can't talk about that without talking about K through 12. And it's easy to overlook the incredible work and responsibilities our superintendents have in our school districts on the coast. And our school districts, by all measures in the state, are the very top. And we've got the best school districts in the state without question. So we partnered with MEC, with Scott Waller at MEC, and our coast chambers to invite our superintendents to have a conversation about just the evolving innovation that they've taken on in terms of career technical education, the requirements that they have, what that looks like today versus, maybe 30 years ago. And these superintendents are, one, incredibly dedicated to the kids that they're educating. They're very responsible, and they are very willing to look toward the future and what's best for these kids that are graduating, and how do they set them up for success, whether it be college or a trade, and then how do we marry that with our business and industry that are on the coast already. So we had our first of 3 meetings. The first was Harrison County. We'll be in Jackson County July the 25th, and then we'll end in Hancock County in August the 5th. And so it's a bit of a different general membership meeting than we've had in the past. It's more of a forum and a discussion, and we brought in a state partner with MEC to also layer into that conversation. So the first one's very good. I think we'll have another great meeting in Jackson County in a few weeks.
Hey, listen, I had the opportunity to introduce you to Scott Coopwood, who recently purchased the Mississippi Business Journal. Already has, under the new ownership, has already issued their first issue of it under the new design and new approach. But I'm excited about Scott because Scott he's at Delta Business Journal, Delta Magazine, has a newspaper up in the Delta, and he's bringing such a sort of a fresh breath of air to that effort. I look forward to you getting to know him, and the role the Business Journal can play across the state of Mississippi to tell coastal Mississippi story can't be underestimated. So I look forward to the two of you guys getting together soon. Hey, when we get back on the other side, we'll find out what's coming up for the Gulf Coast Business Council. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Thank you so much for joining us. So, thank you for the feedback. Get so much great feedback. And now that the show is airing across the state on certain days, and certainly airing across the state every single show on SuperTalk TV, I get feedback from people from across the state, and you touch people in ways you don't appreciate until you hear from them. And so I appreciate people giving us feedback and all the sort of positive vibe you're creating about the show. We really appreciate that. Hey, Jamie, it occurred to me during the break that one thing I always try to do, people who have not heard you and me talk before, who really don't know what the Business Council is, let's remind them real quickly what this organization is.
Yeah, our organization is a nonprofit. It's a member-driven, privately held organization of basically business and industry CEOs from the lower 3 counties of Mississippi. Our goal primarily is to advocate and help implement public policy related to economic and workforce development issues. That includes tourism, could be gaming, could be a host of things. But we want to see a positive outcome, both economically and from a quality of life standpoint for the Gulf Coast. And we're a regional organization, so sometimes you may have an issue that may mean a lot to one particular city or county. We look broadly across the whole region and the state in some cases, and we'll get engaged to advocate for a positive outcome, but primarily focused on the economy.
Well, listen, you and I have had these conversations before, but one of the things that my mentor, Roland Weeks, taught me, and something I really pushed hard after I became publisher of the Sun Herald, and certainly after Hurricane Katrina, was you have to have an organization that involves directly the CEOs. Now, it's great to have number twos and number threes and number fours. I mean, the more the merrier. But when you have the CEOs of the organizations involved, then you have the decision maker. You have the ability to reallocate resources or do whatever we need to do. But more even important than that is you have the opportunity to have their experience and their wisdom and their understanding and their learning with the other CEOs about the regional challenges and opportunities. That's what the Gulf Coast Business Council is all about. And so with that said, give them a sense of like who your executive committee is.
We've got a 13-member executive committee. It is the CEOs of the largest employers on the Gulf Coast. You could think Chevron, Ingalls, Memorial Hospital, Singing River Health System, Yates Construction, Andercor. I'm leaving some folks off
Hancock
here.
Whitney.
Hancock Whitney, obviously, Ron Barnes with Coast Electric, Mississippi Power, Anthony Wilson. So. Yeah. Our largest employers basically on the Gulf Coast that have a tremendous amount of impact on our economy and our workforce are members of our executive committee.
And when you have the biggest employers, you get a lot with that, but you also get big thinkers, people who had broad understandings. They're great problem solvers. That's what made them the CEOs that they are today. And they control a lot of resources. And It's cool. You never know what's going to happen when you bring that group together because there's just so much brain power in the room.
Yeah, they've got of course, they're well connected. They've had long careers. They're leading large companies. They're very respected, and so I think they're very guarded with the things that we ultimately take up in terms of initiative or programs because they fully intend to implement it, and so they can think down the road and see what impact or potential unintended consequence could be from time to time, but they're very thoughtful. They're all really humble leaders as well, and it's been a pleasure, really an honor, just to be around them. Each month we have executive committee meetings, and then we exchange phone calls and emails as well. But I'm still learning a lot from them.
It's good stuff. Hey, what's coming up for you guys?
For us, member value, we want to bring value to our members. And so we've looked at different ways to do that. Our website needed a refresher. We want to be a repository and somewhat of a clearinghouse for data. We're going to be able to do that. Policy forums are one thing that came out. Our members said, general membership meetings are good. We'd like to do additional things. Maybe we've hosted receptions for President Joe Paul. We've hosted, Congressman Ezell. So we've tried to add value to our members. We're at an all-time high. We've just eclipsed 270 members of the Business Council, which is an all-time high for us. Revenues are directly impacted by that. So it allows us to do more advocacy, more events, and bring more value to our members. So that's been one of our goals, is to stay focused on the blocking and tackling of what we're here to do, but also listen to our members and try to grow the organization.
Yeah, I was at the reception for the president of Southern Miss, Joe Paul, and that was so well done. Great venue, incidentally, as well. But the reality that you can bring all of those folks together and give Joe the opportunity, first of all, to recognize him and to congratulate him on becoming the president of USM, but also the opportunity for him to be able to speak to them about their commitment to coastal Mississippi. It's a win-win. And it's, when you can pull events like that off and have those people attend and everybody together, the informal conversations that are taking place, you can't lose when you're able to attract that kind of a leadership to the table. Listen, Jamie, it's been great to catch up with you, my friend.
It's always great catching up with you, Ricky. Thanks again for having me on, and I look forward to spending some time with you again.
You bet. Yeah, enjoy your vacation, incidentally.
Yeah.
Listen, this has been a great conversation with CEO of Gulf Coast Business Council, Jamie Miller. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.